Hello, people. Welcome to the Pedal Dive podcast. I am Hello Sailor Joe, and today we've got a legend who's going to teach us whether treble boosters actually boost treble. I don't think they do. And my co-host today is
John Mulholland, Space Wolf. Greetings and salutations from sunny North Carolina.
And the special guest today,
Chris Vincent from R2R Electric here in sunny Southern California.
Awesome.
Hey, I've got to say, I like that you saluted properly there, not like the bullshit army way.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
Well, so the British Army and Marines do it that way around. I think it's to show their hands are clean because they don't wash properly.
Those dirty bastards.
Yeah, I know, yeah. And if Thorpe ever watches this, yes, I am talking about you, mate. Every time I see him at guitar shows and stuff, he goes past and calls me a fish head because that's what the army call the navy. And now it's stuck. Yeah. So I've got customers who like, it's Crazy Fandango. I'm thinking of you, mate, if you're watching. He'll like call me a fish head and start laughing at him and his wife. Like, and in fact, Crazy Fandango first in to say Pongo as well. That's what we call the army. We
Pongo. That's funny.
Because the smell goes when they go. Pong goes. Anyway, there you go. We've got Greg Green saying it's to show that soldiers aren't hiding any spunk. Perfect.
There we go.
Well, I suppose that would be quite hard. Wadey's in straight away. Cheers, Wadey. And hello to everyone.
Yeah, he's probably got the day off today.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Is it still Easter holidays over your side?
Easter Monday, yeah. So a lot of people have the day off. Yeah.
I have trouble with days of the week because I'm in the Navy. It's just like every day is Monday morning. You know?
work day.
I never know what week it is.
Exactly. It's mad, isn't it? I said this to one of my guys who was leaving work. He said to me, I'm not going to miss the Navy. I said, what day of the week is it? He said, I don't know, Chief. Like, well, you'll never have that again. That's over.
Those days are finished.
Yeah, fair one. So, Chris, what's going on? What's new?
Oh, man. Let's see. I just wrapped up a batch that pretty much sold out. I've got one that's just hanging on, waiting for somebody to buy it. But been trying to dig into doing more like vintage replicas, things like that. It's been, a process starting back from, way back when I started, even just getting into this, just collecting parts and trying to find, the exact pieces that you would find in old, Rangemasters, tone benders, stuff like that. So where I find one, I've got a little stash and stick it aside, and I'm finally to the point to where I can do a few, like not a ton, but a few. So I'm doing those at a time. I've got a couple up on my eBay store for auction right now. It's a Mark 1.5 and a Mark 2 tone bender. They're basically like part for part replicas of the originals, and I've been very lucky that a friend of mine has lent me a few of the originals that I've been able to dig into, and they needed repairs, so it gave me a chance to dig in and like take measurements and kind of look at everything and get my head around what the original circuit sounds like, and what the voltages are, things like that. Those gonna go hand in hand. Gotta get the right biases and things like that. It's one thing to see a schematic and just kind of go off of that. You can get really close, but it really helps to have an original in front of you that you can kind of A/B and figure out.
Totally does.
Where you need to tweak your model and see what you can do to get closer. So been doing a lot of that stuff, which is fun. I don't get to do a ton of them. They're really expensive to build, and in turn, are really expensive to sell, which I get kind of sucks for people, but it is a lot of fun to do.
Yeah.
Well, you do a great job of it too, man. That was something that series of videos you did when you first got into these things, and you released like, this is what this circuit sounds like. I go back and I listen to those videos that you released of all those different pedals as my point of reference. Like when I'm designing circuits and trying to go for certain sounds, I'll have that, on my YouTube playlist, and I'll bring it up and like, what did Chris's sound like? And so
excellent. I mean, that's why I did it. Those things are so rare.
Well, that's why I thought you were a lot younger than you are too. Like, because those were old videos that you posted. And I was like, yeah, man, this kid's doing some really awesome stuff. Like,
I just look.
You just look young too. That when I shave all this off, I get carded. So
yeah, it helped. I had to start shaving because I saw some pictures of myself with my beard, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so gray. I really aged.
First thing to go, man. First thing to go is the beard.
Yeah, so I've got some gray in here as well, but
we're getting a few people in the comments saying that they own your pedals. If anyone owns one of Chris's pedals, please write in the comments and let me know what you own. I'll go first. I've got number 70. Is it 140? I think I've got on the Rangemaster the treble boost. It's one of the first ones with the clicker switch, and there's no label on it. It's just a blue enclosure with a small
that was
switch.
pre me having a name or anything. No, I was just still. I think I was on Reverb as just R2R, but not R2R electric. That hadn't come about yet. Yeah, that was. I remember that one. That was really early on.
Well, I remember because I think about two for sale that were the same, and one had an OC44 and one had an AC107, I believe.
Yeah,
and I remember sending a link round to all of my guitar friends saying, "Buy this pedal now before it goes." And they were like, "Oh, I think it was like £140. It was nothing, no money at all." And they were like, "I'm not paying that for a pedal with no name on." I'm like, "All right, well, fine." And now who's laughing now?
Marcus Reeves is telling you to get some decent guitars, Chris. He says you make great pedals, but hell, get some decent guitars, man.
I know. Yeah. Sorry, Marcus.
I mean, what's wrong with a 1964 Teisco? I mean, come on.
Well,
this is the greatest.
That's what's right here behind me. A 64 Teisco. That's a decent guitar.
Vintage Les Paul, haven't you, Chris?
Yeah, got a couple.
I think he's being cheeky because he's got walls and walls of guitars from what I've seen on your Instagram.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. I have a problem. I don't have a ton of Les Paul standards. I have one old Les Paul standard, but I've also got a couple of juniors and things like that. So I have a few. Marcus is taking a piss with me.
He is. He's definitely.
Oh man, love it. I've got a thing for guitars, but I've also got a wife and kids, so it's just no chance. I got a couple. Like I sneak the odd one past there, but I can't. Yeah, I need to tell him. Oh, you're telling me, mate. It's mad.
That's why you need to get him into playing music.
Well,
it's not for me, honey. It's for her. It's for our lovely daughter.
My 18-year-old's got my Maybury guitar. He come down for a little holiday. He lives in Wales. He come down, had a little play of it, and he was like, "Oh, I really like this guitar, Dad. Just take it." Get out with sight.
That's cool, though. I mean, that's how I got into play. My dad played.
Oh, was it? Oh, cool. What music was it?
He did a lot of he was into kind of weird. I mean, he got me into Zeppelin and the Beatles and stuff like that, but he was into Moody Blues was like one of his favorite bands.
Yeah, Justin.
So he was into the more like softer side of classic rock.
Yeah.
I had never really gravitated towards, but it was my intro into all that kind of stuff. And then from there, I got a little bit older and learned what punk rock was and all that. I started getting more into my own kinds of music, but he really started me off on. He did listen to a lot of Zeppelin, which is still one of my favorite bands of all time. So he's definitely to blame for all this.
Well, speaking of being into bands and music and stuff, do you have like a lick that you lean on? I say this to everyone, and I know Marcus has got one as well, that you play whenever you're testing out a pedal. It's like that one riff that is the go-to.
I think it's probably Custard Pie.
Oh,
Led
really?
Zeppelin. That's whenever I pick up a guitar, that's like the first thing I bang out almost every time. It's tougher with fuzz. Like it kind of works with like a full-on fuzz, but usually like that, I'll test the rolled back tone.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tone benders that give you a real nice overdrive, and Jimmy played a Mark II for a long time, so it's that's always kind of my two.
It's funny because nearly every builder I speak to has like that one. Like I'll play Butcher, not play ZZ Top's Brown Sugar, just because I played that so many times, that riff, that I can tell if a pedal's going to react in a certain way. Or I think Marcus has one off the Beano album that he plays, if I remember rightly. I'm sure he'll let us know in the comments.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. I mean, anything off that album is going to be pretty good for, boost or fuzz.
Well, there you go. Yep. Shake it. Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, cool.
Oh, man. Yeah, so I really want to get into treble boosters today. And there's loads of little things that you do with yours that is so different to the angle that I take to approach it. And the most obvious, and the first one I want to ask about, is the switch. Because you wire it in a way so then there's only one cap, as opposed to every one I've seen someone will stack a cap on top. I have heard you talk about this in the past, but is there a reason for doing it that way? Or do you think it makes any difference to...
I do. I started doing it like that. Somebody had requested early on a 3-way rotary switch instead of the 3-way toggle switch, which is the more common, Beano. Pretty much anybody who puts a variable on a Rangemaster usually does the little toggle switch. And I've just found the tone sounds, and this is just incredibly subtle, but I just feel like the single cap in line instead of stacking caps, there's a different sound, because you get a little bit of extra capacitance and resistance when you're stacking caps, as opposed to just having a single one in place. It's something I actually noticed more on when I started trying to do a range control. Like, that's the other kind of famous thing what people will do is either the toggle switch where it's 3 different caps that stack on each other, or it's a potentiometer that's blending between 2 capacitors. And I always found that it really only had the correct amount of bite when it was all the way one way or all the way the other. Like, everywhere in between sounded great, and you got this big range of sounds out of it, but the ultimate boost in the clip got didn't sound as aggressive as it did when it was just one cap or the other. So that's made me think well, maybe if I could do something that was only a single cap at a time, but still gave people the option to choose different tones of it, that'd be the best way to go. So that's kind of how I landed on 6-way. And it was also just I've always been obsessed by decade boxes. I just think it's the coolest, where you can it's a stack of really being able to dial in capacitors or resistors,
or even a transistor decade box too. That's one of those, a transistor substitution box. Yeah. My dad was a radio and TV repairman, so I've got Heathkit stuff that you would drool over, man. Like my test equipment and my diagnostic equipment and I've got a color TV that eventually is going to be pillaged for parts that he built. It's the Bell and Howell Heathkit TV. He assembled it on the kitchen table. He bought it in the least assembled form, the cheapest form you could buy, and put the entire thing together, and it still works. It's the crazy thing. I can turn it on and still get a picture. So
that's so cool.
But it's bound to have all kinds of cool components in there.
Oh, I'm sure. The old Heathkit stuff, they use great parts in those. I've taken apart several old Heathkit organs and amplifiers, and they use great parts, and all of them usually still work.
Yep. Yeah. Everything that I fired up that has that name on it that was his, it still functions. And if it doesn't, it was something simple like some corrosion on some contacts that just needed to be cleaned or something like that. Simple mechanical failures, nothing the components were at fault for.
Well, I mean, that's 99% of all electronics failure is usually something fairly simple.
Made so much money with a can of deoxit. I mean, a can of deoxit and a little bit of IQ, and you can make a lot of money.
You can really do a lot. I worked on a pedal for the same guy that lent me all those old ones I made videos of. It was called FC1. It left the factory. It was in the guitar shop for decades because it didn't work. And he bought it because it was brand new in the box. Everything's truly old stock because it went from Gibson to this guitar dealer, and it didn't work. And
so
it was just a little bit of corrosion on the switch, the on-off switch. It was, it's a potentiometer with an on-off switch.
Yep.
I took it apart, cleaned it up, and immediately popped on, and it's
wow,
just amazing sounding fuzz that he got for. I'm sure it wasn't cheap, but a lot cheaper than had it been working.
Oh, in that condition.
Yeah. Now it's working. I didn't have to replace a single part, and so sometimes you just got to clean it.
And of course, you got to like go through and take measurements of everything and document it too. So
that's exactly right. He sent me with 3 of them, so I have measurements and specs on all 3.
Oh, sweet. So
that one was the best one by far. That one actually kind of sounded like a Mark One.
Oh, really?
Usually FC1s, like you can hear where the Mark One came from in them, but they're meant to sound like a broken channel strip. That's the point of that pedal, was to sound broken. But this one, for whatever reason, it had a lot more sustain and a bigger, fuller, like Mark One kind of sound than any of the other ones that he had sent me with, and the other ones that I've worked on in the past. Like they always sounded kind of broken and cool, but very, broken. And the Mark One was, somebody's attempt at making that FC1 circuit into a usable pedal. And so it was really interesting to hear kind of in between, where it's like, it's not quite as good as the Mark One, but you could hear where it came from in that. So that was pretty cool.
Awesome.
I wonder if it was down to bias or something like that. That was
I'm sure
making it sound
good.
Yeah.
But it was still one of those. They're just single AA batteries, so they're 1.5 volt.
Yeah, 1.5 volts. Yeah, so you don't have much to work with there.
Yeah, it's still quite a bit different.
I did a pop-up guitar show, and the guy one stand over for me was making replicas with that took AA batteries, like exact replicas. So cool. I can't remember his name.
To meet him.
And thank you for the super chat, Dan Mincher. You really don't need to. I posted your pedals today as well, mate, by the way. Get in. He sent me a blank enclosure to finish for the headphone amp that he's making. So I went to town on that. And then he also bought a delay. So thanks very much, Dan. Really appreciate it. And also he's ex-Navy, so that makes him cool as fuck anyway, I suppose.
Totally.
Whenever he's messaging me, he says, "All right, Chief." Like, I'm
like he's on board
anymore, mate. You're a civilian.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. Oh man, I tell you what, I've had 2 weeks away from the Navy. It's been bliss, and I've got to go back tomorrow. I'm absolutely dreading it. Chief, I can't find my shoes. Chief, I can't find my hat. That's what it's going to be.
Sounds like fun.
Oh, mate.
Glorified babysitting.
Yeah. I work behind the desk with a laptop, and all I do is send emails to people and say, so-and-so is going to be late, or he's got a hospital appointment, or something like, or he's lost his shoes. How'd you lose your shoes? I don't know. But I have one guy. You're going to love this. This is the generation that we're working with. I had one guy that didn't know how to use the telephone.
Oh, no.
So I phoned them up. I say this all the time. I phoned them up and said, the girl in our like main office needs to speak to you. Phone her up, please. This is the number. And he said, how? Like, you've got a phone in your block, like a hardwired phone. Pick, phone her on that. And he's like, I get all of that, Chief. I just don't understand this phone bit. Is it on a mobile phone? And I was like, well,
where's the screen? Is what he's probably thinking. Like, I can't find her contact information in the menu. There's no screen.
Because it's like a hardwired military phone. You can't phone off your mobile. I said, well, just use that phone. He's like, I'm not getting it. He said, are you on the base? I thought maybe he's at home, and he's blagging me, and he's like, no, I'm on the base. I'm stood in front of the phone. I just don't understand the phone bit. I was like, oh God. Can I give you your mobile number? He was like, yes, Chief. Right. Fuck off. Honestly, he didn't know how to pick up the phone and dial a number.
When did he ever when's he ever seen one? Like,
I mean, really,
most kids don't know what a dial tone is. They don't know what rewinding is. Like, there's some things that we all saw in our youth. Like, we had a rotary phone
exactly
when I was a kid. Like, you have to dial the thing and come back, and then dial the next number, comes back.
Yeah.
I still have a rotary control switch to make your antenna motor rotate your antenna on top of your house. The thing where you had to like turn it to where you had pre-marked your channels with a little bit of marking tape, and you have to turn it, and then you can hear the antenna go cha-chink, cha-chink, cha-chink up on top of the house. Well, sending a signal to a servo. Oh, that was that was luxury. Otherwise, you had to get up there and do it by hand.
So bad when we were kids. We just had bunny ears on top of our console TV.
I had the father that I had who was a mad scientist. He built the first satellite dish in North Carolina for public use, for private home use. The first movie I saw was The Blue Lagoon, if that tells you how long ago it was.
Oh my God, yeah. Okay.
I don't even know what that film is, mate. I think that's before my time.
Exactly. It was before you were born, mate.
Yeah, 85?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was before.
It was before you were born. It was early 80s.
Crazy
Fandango.
Yay. Well, welcome to the Grumpy Old Men chat. Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get off my lawn, kids.
The thing that annoys me is when these kids get on board, and they are really kids, we still have old Bakelite phones that are shaped like you'd imagine, on a telephone. You still have them on board because they can repulse an EMP or whatever. So all the phones are still old button phones or whatever, especially on the old chips that I save on. So there's no excuse really, but I don't know.
I think he just was giving you a little bit of a go there, Joe, to see if he could get away with it. I think he was pulling your leg.
Me up.
Yeah.
It's only cheaper to understand who they're running around for me.
Mm-hmm. It's like, how long can we keep him on this? How long?
I've seen it all, mate. I have this WhatsApp group for each one of my classes. I've got 60 students or something like that. And I have a WhatsApp group where I can just put messages out to them. But they're that stupid that they forget that I'm in a WhatsApp group. So one of them will say, we're late to work today. Do you think we'll get away with it? Will the chief? No. I'm fucking here in the group. I'm literally in you're talking on my group. I made it.
Right.
They're idiots.
Grace Fandango says, well, you did suggest the young guys were kept drunk and stupid, so it kind of is your fault, Joe.
Okay.
You did make that.
I need to explain that. My problem is we give these young kids really good qualifications. We give them degrees, electronic degrees, engineering degrees, and then they leave the Navy and get a better job. And what I said was, keep them stupid, keep them drunk. If you don't give them degrees, they can't get a job. So they stay in the Navy. We win. And if you keep them drunk, now listen to this one, apart from the fact that we conquered the world being British while people were drunk, but if you keep them drunk, that means that they don't have a wife and kids because they're drunk. And that means that they want to stay in the Navy and go to sea to get drunk. It works. When I joined up, the Navy was a better place. That's all. How old and bitter do I sound there?
I think we are in the grumpy old man chat at that point. When I was in the Navy.
Now if I'd have only bought a Les Paul Junior back then, it was three grand, and I was I'm not paying £3,000 for the Junior.
For a vintage one.
Good old days.
Yeah. I tell you what I wish I bought. I wish I bought the first Billy Joe Armstrong Jr. with the leopard inside case thing. I really wanted one of them. I just didn't buy it. And now they're $4 grand, $5 grand or something. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're pushing up there.
I mean, it's a cool guitar, but it's made tons of them.
Yeah,
it's so funny how things just as soon as they get discontinued, all of a sudden it's they just shoot up in price. It's discontinued because nobody was buying it, and now it's just really funny how that works.
I've got two words for you, mate. Bad monkey. That was insane. How did they go up in value?
So ridiculous.
I
mean, that's all it takes. Josh Scott could literally pick any pedal and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna double the price today," and just do a YouTube show,
do a video on it. Yeah,
that's all it takes. I mean, nobody puts out a bad sounding pedal. There's no pedal that just came out and was this is just completely unusable. There's always a use for them. You just have to know how to find it.
I've got to challenge that one thing and say Digitech Crossroads.
I've heard that, but I bet you can get something out of it.
Yeah, I bet you could.
If you can keep it working.
Yeah,
But yes, it's
if
not-
you can keep it working.
do what it's supposed to do.
Well, the thing about the Bad Monkey thing is, I was like, maybe I'll buy one and mod it. It'd be a great video, would get loads of views. And then when I seen the price, I'm like, I am not paying that for a Bad Monkey just to jump on the craze and mod it. Not a chance. I mean,
No,
they were never
not
a
even-
bad sounding pedal.
What's that?
They were never bad. I did the Blue Screamer, a modern one of them. That's a decent pedal.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can metal zones, everything. You can get a good sound out of almost any pedal. It's just taking the time to learn what it does. And I feel like a lot of people, if it doesn't sound good immediately on, first contact, they just figure it's a bad pedal. It happens a lot. So it's, it just takes somebody who knows how to set one up, like Josh or somebody else going online and be like, this is how it sounds good. And then all of a sudden it becomes this new thing. But the Klon, they stopped making it because it wasn't selling. In 2012, nobody was buying Klons. I remember the local Sam Ash was blowing them out like $150 because nobody was buying them. And then 2 years later, somebody sees it on John Mayer's board, and now they're 5,000, 6,000 a piece.
Well, how many people converted their TS10s to TS808s?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, that was another one I didn't expect.
That was a big one there for a while. I remember.
My buddy growing up had one of those TS10s, and I hated that thing. It's so bad.
So funny story. I just bought, well, not recently, but I bought one of them Tamora mod Tube Screamer, whatever they are. I bought like the high gain version, and I can't play the thing compared to the JSA, the one that Simon built me. It's just it's not even in the same league. It sounds dead dark and woolly and gainy. Well, I suppose that's what it is. But
I mean, that's anytime you try to do a high version of something, that's kind of what you end up with, is just too much compression and it gets real dark. And it's really unnecessary for the most part. Like adding extra gain to something that already has gain is just, it's a little redundant and usually doesn't make it a better pedal. Yeah. Or amp or anything. Like adding, a ton of gain to an amp also, you lose all the dynamics and everything. And even guys who play, high gain and metal and stuff like that, they don't use all that gain. Like just having everything cranked to 10 never works all that well. So I don't know.
I think Lee Mellier uses Lee Mellier, is it? He uses a Tube Screamer to push a metal amp into that sort of sound, so you get like the replacement of the scoop. Yeah,
I'm really liking I'm liking the results I'm getting out of using the MOSFET JFET circuit instead of a Tube Screamer for my boost, and adding some germanium clipping diodes if I want, some of the grit, because it's giving me all the attack and it's like a more well-rounded sound. It sounds more like a natural amp sound. That circuit is something that I think I'm going to make a lot of, at least as long as I can find 2N7000s and J201s.
Well, yeah, the J201s are getting...
The J201s are getting harder and harder to find.
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah. They'll come in spots. You'll get a lot of fakes is the problem.
That's it, yeah. And most of the ones I see online.
And it is such a crucial part of the sound of this circuit that, if you use one that's not, to spec, it's going to sound horrible.
I've switched to using the old SMD boards. I get them from Five Cats Pedals. He sold us on the newer J201s, the small ones, onto like a small PCB. And then I just use that as a transistor rather than messing about. Yeah, I just can't. I don't know what's going on with the world. What I've started doing is just buying everything. I wish a few years ago I'd have had that philosophy and not buy one or two, just buy everything. If I like,
buy the whole lot. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was like what Marcus was saying. He bought 100 of that one particular transistor and went back to buy the rest of the lot, and somebody had already beat him to it.
He posted about them online in between.
Well, yeah, that was his fault.
Someone swooped in.
I could have told him that. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
I made that mistake in the past, and I paid for it dearly. Like, definitely doing what I do, I have to find something. I have to buy it all because it will be gone tomorrow and I'll never find it again. So it's yeah, that's a bummer. You get excited about something and like, look what I found, and then somebody else and goes and finds the rest of them and takes them. So that's I've learned that lesson the hard way a few times. I definitely feel poor Marcus's pain there.
He's just got loads of new transistors in. Every other day I see them posted on his Instagram, like newer NKT silicon that you could probably find 10 a penny back in the day. That he's swooped up and bought boxes of them. So you must have a hell of a collection now, Chris.
Oh my god, yeah, it's starting to thin out a little bit. I probably about a year and a half ago, I was real stocked on a bunch of great stuff, and I've since been working my way through it. But very lucky and found some more. Actually, Marcus works as my middleman over there and over in the UK. So when I find something, usually on eBay, and the seller these are usually old guys who don't really know what they're doing. So when they set it up, they'll charge shipping per item. And so it'll want like 15 pounds per transistor. And I'm like, I'm trying to buy 600 transistors. I don't want to pay this.
It's impossible.
I just send them to Marcus, and then it cost me $5 or £5. So he's got a little package that's about to head my way pretty soon, and hopefully those will all work out. But yeah, I've got a pretty fair collection of transistors as far as all the Mojo stuff, like the OC44s and OC75s. Whenever I find that stuff, I have to buy all.
Yeah,
I have my limits. Like the OC75s on eBay I'm not going to pay $30 a transistor because most of them are bad. I did make that. I shouldn't say mistake, but I got a huge lot of OC75s right when their prices were going easy. I'm sure, Joe, our favorite place where most people get their transistors from over there in the UK. They had them for $10 a piece, and I was using them. I had just announced my Super Mark II, which used OC75s, and so I went back to buy a bunch of them, and somebody had bought almost their whole stock. So they doubled the price up to 20 pounds a piece. And I got hundreds of them. I think I might have bought 1,000 of them. It was very expensive. And then as soon as they raised the price to 30 pounds a piece. So for me, that's like $37 each.
Yeah.
For these OC75s, and I show you the bag of bad ones. It was 90% of them were unusable.
No. There's always a use for them, mate.
There's something else. That's why I'm saving them. I will find something somewhere.
If nothing else, use them in a clipping stage for something.
You're gonna have to be. I mean, half of them test as diodes anyway, so they're already halfway.
There you go. You already have a bunch of diodes in a bag.
Is it that AMZ buffer, the germanium buffer that you can use leaky transistors for? So at least then you're making something with them.
Yeah. Also,
look, it's got an OC75 in it.
And a fuzz right, a really leaky transistor works really nice for one half of the fuzz right. You want to
I mean, most of the tone benders need a little bit of leakage in Q1.
I'm trying to think of the ones that want the insane amounts, though, like the ones that are way above those tolerances. So not many. I guess the circuit that you're about to build, Joe, the harmonic percolator, likes a leaky PNP.
That's my next YouTube video. I've got the stuff together now. It was like a leaky one, does it?
It does, yeah. If you want to get the Albini sounds, it's got to be a really nice leaky one.
I've literally never built one. I finished the Mark 1.5 and I was like, I'm going to keep going with Fuzz because for some reason all my other videos are getting literally not no views, but certainly not getting the views that like a Fuzz video does, or even a treble booster. Maybe I'll do another Rangemaster one. I built them in a completely different way to the layouts online, and it just means you can use a PNP transistor with a normal non-inverted power supply. So it's probably
right, which is cool.
That out there.
Which is great.
Yeah, I got it from the Java boost, so it's not like I invented anything else.
No, but still, none of us have invented anything really. So
exactly, yeah.
Now we use it.
Yes,
they didn't invent using a 6-way switch on a treble booster. I'm sure somebody's done it before.
I'll tell you what, I'm never building again, ever. A Timmy. Oh my god.
Oh, is that your disaster video you just posted? I haven't watched it yet.
Mate,
So.
I like to whittle them down to about 50 minutes long, and I can easily do it. That's a long video. This one was like an hour and 50 minutes because I made that many mistakes. The schematic weren't right, and I built it. Fucking, oh my god. I was fed up. I had broken pots and all sorts.
There's Albus is in the chat. They're actually driving home from work today, so they've switched places.
Hello, mate.
Hey.
I was meant to call you at the weekend, Aaron, and it escaped me. So we'll have to set a time, mate. It's hard with guys over the pond because you're on like such different hours to us, and
I mean, it's early evening here, and it's probably early afternoon in Los Angeles, and it's nighttime where you're at, Joe. So I mean, we're at 3.
1:30 here.
Yeah, so it's 4:30 here.
Right. Yeah, it's tough figuring out. The time zones make it tough because it's all worldwide, and every time I do a drop, I inevitably get the guy from Singapore or New Zealand or whatnot. It's like, can you please change the time? It's like 4:00 in the morning, and I woke up early and I missed out. It's like I get it. It sucks. It's it's really funny how small the world's become. We can all be having a conversation like this, and people from all over the world are buying what we're making, and all. It's all because of just seeing this stuff on the internet and then trying to coordinate with everybody. It's a really interesting time to be alive, for sure.
Especially as a creative type. I mean, the kind of communities that we're able to put together as makers now, like unheard of when you and I first started doing this.
None of us would be doing this if it wasn't for that. It's just so hard to get your product out there.
Aaron said he's just watched the Timmy video and he thought I was going to spike it. Mate,
Maybe
nearly went in the bin. Honestly, I was about that close to just smashing it into little pieces.
That's probably going to be your most watched video now, Joe.
I would get the most joy out of this pedal. Breaking it in. And do you know what it was? I tried to be clever and use these. I've got these old Japanese hi-fi shells that I'd like stripped out, and I was trying to use 1 meg pots from that, and it tested the thing fine, works good, sweeps okay, it's cleaned out. And then when I put it in the pedal, it didn't work. So I was like, "You motherfucker!" Swapped it out for another one. That one was broke, and then I used a new potentiometer. Didn't work. So I got to my 3rd one, and my 4th one, and that worked. And it still didn't work right. The pedal went through the whole build. I was like, "What is it?" So I watched the video back, and I put a wire under the board in the wrong slot all the way through it. And it was me.
Dude, I've been there so many times.
Oh,
it happens to the best of us, man. It's just the way it goes.
Someone's bought that pedal, so if you're watching this, whoever's bought it, I have fixed it, and there's nothing wrong with it now. But just know that it nearly went in the bin.
It's like me going back and tracing the circuit that I made and like wondering where I went wrong, and like, I know this thing worked. What's going on? And then I didn't put the IC back in the socket after I took it out just to solder the last connections on because I didn't want to overheat it. I was like, being super careful. So I pulled the IC out of the socket to make the last connections to the box because I tested it outside of the box. And it's like, why does this thing not work? What did I do? And there's no IC in it.
Let's do it.
Yep. But 20 hours of cursing and screaming later, I'm like, oh.
I got this dropped off yesterday for the repair.
Hey.
Oh, beautiful.
Cool.
So apparently there was a snap cap inside, just floating around. So should be an easy repair and open.
Wow.
It should be easy, but I have one if you need to reference. Reference. So
that's one of my favorite color sound circuits is the Supertone Bender, man. The sound that you get out of it is just amazing.
Well, I haven't heard it, so a real one anyway. This should be fun. If I take a picture of the inside, Chris, will you be able to tell me what the cap, what type of cap it is? Because obviously I can find the schematic with the value, but I want to try and match it, you know.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Of course. I'll check it out. I'm sure I can find you the right cap.
Yeah, I mean, you can't see over here, but I've got like a wall of stuff. It's been ridiculous.
We'll find it.
Well,
I mean, I can kind of see.
Yeah.
I got some walls here.
Well, when I moved in here, one of my mates bought me like this huge box of components. Like I couldn't even hardly carry it in the thing, and there was all sorts in there. So if I didn't have loads already, I definitely have now. But yeah, this got dropped off. I'm just going to audio probe it around the circuit and make sure there's nothing else. How do you fault find if you guys go through it? Do you have like a set routine or?
Me, usually when I'm working on old pedals, I do anything mechanical first, like switches, jacks, clean everything up, and then just a visual check. Is anything either popped, broken, burned, and yeah, then I'll go from there. I'll either start with an audio probe and just go through it and try to figure out where the signal goes dead, or honestly, most of the time, I just start making guesses. I was working on Fuzz faces, and I could not figure out for the life of me why they weren't sounding all that good. Like the signal was passing, everything seemed to be working properly. They were biased, kind of weird. They were old. They were old 60s. Germanium fuzz faces, so the bias on those kind of is all over the place anyway, just from the nature of faces. It ended up on both of them being the input cap.
Oh wow!
Electrolytics.
So, yeah,
that's the thing. Like electrolytics have, they have a shelf life and then they're gone.
Yeah, if you're not running hardly any voltage to it, they'll still, because I mean those things are usually rated for 63 volts, and you're running 9 to it. But if that, I don't even the input cap is seeing voltage. I can't remember.
Well, somebody told me, and this was somebody that had trained in like old electronics. They said that an electrolytic cap will actually go bad, especially the older ones. They'll go bad faster if you're not applying voltage to it on a regular basis. So a lot of people that kept their amps pristine and never plugged them in, and then the first time they plugged them on, they wouldn't, plugged them in like 30, 40 years later, they wouldn't work. They all had to be recapped because they just completely leaked apart. So
yeah, that'll do it. Well, it could all, if you bring them up on a variac really slowly, they'll go right there. You can charge if you do it right, but it's not a guarantee. There will most likely still be some bad ones if you just let it sit.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I didn't think of that. Even running low voltage, they're not running at capacity, so that could wear them out faster. But that's what it ended up being. I only figured that out. I can't remember how I figured that out. It wasn't with an audio pro. I think I was just testing them to see what they were reading, and I was getting like weird readings on it. And so I was like, well, I'm going to give it a shot. And it ended up on both of them, just new input cap, and boom, came to life. So I just do your best. Do your best.
Joe's going to have he's going to have a little bit of a clue if there's a component floating around in there loose.
I mean, that's always the easiest to tell.
Well, the thing is if you change it and then there's still no sound,
Yeah, what's next after that? Yeah.
Then what do you do? So I always, switch jacks, connections, make that's all clean for any bad solder, any cold solder joints, things like that. But yeah, you'll figure it out.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm excited to get into it, but it's interesting. Do you know what? I've never built one. I've never even dug into it. I think I've owned a few clones, but
basically it's a ram's head, big muff.
All right, okay.
That's why I love it so much. It's got a little bit different flavor though. It's
totally.
But the closest, the closest thing to it in the Big Muff family would be the ram's head for sure. So
I never really got into the Big Muff thing. I built the Cornish G2 with the buffer, and that's probably the best one that I've played. But it's just not my sort of thing. I think I'm more of a fuzz face tone bender. It's a bit, I don't know.
You might like that
yelling.
flavor of circuit then, though, because I mean that it definitely, in my opinion, of all the big muff circuits that I've played around with, has the most useful sound for what I do,
Yeah.
and it'll handle like another fuzz in front of it. You can dial a fuzz face back clean, run that pedal through it, and it takes on a really cool character that way. And I think it's like some of the sound that I heard in like some of the recordings. I was wondering how they're getting this certain kind of overdrive sound, and it's a fuzz face rolled back to like 4 or 5 on your guitar, and then running that into a big muff, and then using. But it goes all to shit when you roll the volume up. I mean, it becomes absolute feedback monstrosity. But you know,
I think you can use a fuzz face in most applications. I love them.
Oh yeah,
I never thought I would. At that last guitar show I did, Birmingham, I had a guy try out my Kossoff drive, and he's an old boy like, and he's playing. He's like, no, sounds nothing like Kossoff. Like, thank you, lovely, cheers. And he's like, I'll try the fuzz though, and he puts it on and bangs out some Koss that's just like perfect with my Les Paul. Like, fucking hell. All right, fair enough. So
it's a really versatile. So I love a fuzz face rolled back way more than I love fuzz face full on. Like it's cool, it's a good fuzz, but the rolled back, like driven and clean sounds you can get out of a fuzz face are just fantastic.
Yeah, and it gives you such a really neat bass tone to add anything else to, in my opinion, too.
Yeah, definitely. Nothing's going to be for me ever a treble boosted into like a slightly gained on anything. Probably my Gibson GA5T if I'm going to pick one. That with a treble boosted into it. It's
just there's something to it. I built my entire career off of it.
I still use your treble booster to test mine. Like, is it good enough to go out the shop? I'll play it next to it, and it's like, yep, I'm happy. They can hang with it. That and the thing that Memory Lane built me. He built like a tone bender and a treble booster in the same box, and that thing's got I don't know. There's something about it. I've never really bonded with any other circuit like the treble booster. Definitely.
Me either. I mean, I really, there's tone benders and things that I really dig, and they do different things. But what it really comes down to is the treble booster is kind of my thing.
Yeah.
3 times. I mean, no, at least 4 times as many treble boosters as I've done any other circuit. So you can definitely say that my entire company is basically based on the booster. So I'm with you.
Yeah. What number treble booster are you up to now? You must be right up there.
I'm currently at my next one will be 1291, and I've got
oh wow
13 more, so I'll hit 1300 after I finish this batch.
Joe's is really early in the line. Yeah,
it's really early.
It's been on my board since. Is it? To be fair, it's been round the world with me. To be fair,
that's amazing.
It took a bit of it took some punishment. Like the salt weather's not good for there.
Those are all hand painted and everything. I bet that thing's just beat to shit.
It had it was the first pedal I seen with the Neve knobs, the maroon Neve.
Those had just come out. I think that like whoever started making those over in China just released them, and I immediately was like, holy shit, I got to try those things out. I think I found them on Amazon. They were really expensive comparatively to like the other stuff I was using. It was like $15 or something like that for a couple of knobs, but totally worth it because it looked really nice on those treble boosters. I still use those on a few of them.
Cool.
That's class. I just like the list of components inside. Everything about the pedal just feels like unique. Even down to like the pot.
Yeah, the list is. I'm so glad that I did it because I found it really interesting, and I thought other people would find it interesting. I will say, after doing 1,300 of them, the amount of writing that I do on that can feel like quite a chore sometimes. Like that feels like half my job is just writing these components down on the back of the back plate. But fully worth it. And I feel like, you know, even people who don't build pedals are interested in this because it's
history.
It's not something that you get in every pedal, so it's cool to be able to see what's in there.
Uncle Dan's vinyl has an interesting force. He's never tried a treble booster, and he's got an unreasonable bias against them. And so would I if it just said treble booster, because I don't like too much treble. I like lower mids, but it boosts your upper mids and lower mids, not your treble. It's completely.
It's kind of counterintuitive by a name, I guess. You know, it's one of the things.
What a marketing mistake that is. Like, I don't know. I'd love to know where that come from. Like who? You know,
I think where they were going with it was because it doesn't boost the low end, like the whole circuit, basically because of the small input cap, it doesn't boost anything under, I forget the what frequency it is, but it doesn't cut anything. So it's only boosting upper mids, and technically treble would be getting boost. You don't hear it that much because that's not what's present in most guitars and amps. So I think that's probably where they got the name from. Yeah, why they decided to go that way? Maybe because treble booster sounded more catchy than mid booster or mid-range boost or something like that. But yeah, the treble booster doesn't boost only treble. It's mainly mids, upper mids, and mids. And it's right where a guitar lives in a mix. Like it literally takes any frequency that you really wouldn't want in a mix. Like it's a fantastic studio tool. It can work really great live. They can be a bit unruly live, but they take a guitar and make it jump through anything. Like actually, speaking of big muffs and stacking them with pedals, big muff and a treble booster.
That's probably amazing. A great combination too. Yeah,
big muff is all low and all high and no mids, and you throw the treble booster in there and it's all mids. It really gets you a fantastic stacked tone between the two of them.
Do you stack the treble booster in front of the muff when you do that?
Yeah. Usually that's the best way. I mean, you can do it either way.
Crazy Fandango, right? This guy likes more treble than you've ever seen on any guitar. So
he runs a bright strat.
The high, and he likes. The thing is, he can play as well. He's got the skills there. But yeah,
nothing wrong with it.
He always comes to my standard guitar shows and makes my guitars sound in a way that I can't make them. Most annoying.
You gotta love a player that can do that. Take your own rig, it sounds way better than you ever could.
There's always this little kid that comes to Birmingham. He must be about, little kid. He must be about 11 or 12, and he just comes up and says, "Can I play this?" Yeah, and he's just like ripping away on it. Like, give me that back. I love it. And I wish I'd have found it at that age. I must have been about 21 by the time I got into guitar, maybe.
Oh wow, yeah, you're late bloomer.
Yeah, I got into it late too. It was college for me, like 18, 19 years old. So I was a drummer up until then, and so I couldn't have a drum kit in the college dormitory room, but I could have a guitar. So
I think building pedals ruined it for me because I just don't play. Like I used to play a lot, and now I'm like, well, while I'm wasting time playing, I could be building a pedal. So,
it is a bummer. I played professionally for 15 years probably, and since getting in this, I rarely get to play anymore. Besides to plug in a pedal, make sure it's working.
Make sure it's working. Yeah.
On to the next one. I definitely have lost a lot of the ability that I used to have, but it's, that's the trade-off. You get older. I'm not really looking to tour anymore. This is a nice way to stay in the industry and not be, not have to.
Throwing all your gear and 5 guys into a van that haven't bathed for a week is not as appealing as it used to be.
No,
not at our age anymore.
Hustle to try to get gigs and stay employed is such a grind. I don't miss it at all.
No.
it was great. Like, I loved doing it. I did it from, you know, my basically out of high school through my early 30s, and it was fantastic, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I also, I wasn't getting to the place where I was getting bigger and bigger tour buses and more comfortable on the road. And that's really what it's going to take for me to be on the road again. So it was just time to sell it. Like, I'm not a pro anymore.
There needs to be a per diem and a contract rider or two here and there.
Yeah, exactly. That I might come out of retirement for that.
Yeah,
I don't.
I'll do those shows.
Uncle Dan's vinyl, clearly echoing John's sentiments here. Here I am looking at R2R Electric and wondering how he could have performed for 15 years. He's about 18. He's just very photogenic, mate, and he shaved his beard off.
Yeah, it's the beard. Get rid of the beard, and this is what I got.
Play music.
John's actually 25.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. So when you toured, what pedals did you use? Did you use a treble booster? Is that where they come about?
I did. I discovered that much later on. I toured with the most basic stuff you could get. I always wanted to be able to, if something went out, go find it wherever. So I played, I think it was all Boss and a tube screamer. So my drive was a tube screamer. I had a Boss tremolo, the TR whatever that I'd modded for the volume boost, a DD5, and that was about it. I really didn't with a lot of pedals for a lot of the time, like depending on the gig. Like most of the bands I toured with were rockabilly, kind of blues rock style stuff. So it didn't require a lot of things. I never had like a big spaceship pedal board, and needed a bunch of tones or anything like that. I did play in like a cover group. It was just a duo. I was on electric and my buddy was on acoustic, and for that I actually just used a Digitech digital modeling, you know, everything all in one kind of thing. I forget what model it was, but it didn't sound great. But we were just playing coffee houses and little bars and dive bars and shit like that. Nobody gave a shit if I
your
had
background
an
music
and be able to take just an XLR direct into PA and have a guitar tone that was usable was pretty nice. Would I do that again if I had the option? Probably not. I've become a little bit more of a snob in my old age because I can afford stuff. For a 20-year-old musician, being able to gig a $150 piece of gear that I never had it break, never had an issue with it, and that's, I played 5-6 nights a week for at least 7 years straight.
Wow.
And so to have just that one little thing, tubes to replace, no parts to break, it was fantastic. So, there's something to be said for ease of use and reliability over, now I've got a room full of vintage amps and guitars, but every time I try to take one out and play with them, it ends up needing to be repaired the next day. So
oh, really?
I mean, not always, but vintage amps they're
just notoriously picky.
Notoriously picky, and moving them around is not their favorite thing. And they're great for here, but trying to tour with them is very difficult. So
that's why most bands, they set up backline rentals for everywhere they go. Like one of the stores I worked out of, we had all the amps that were required for the different shows that would come through Asheville. We had a Twin, we had the SVT, we had anything they would want, and it shows up at the gig ready to go. And a lot of them don't tour with their own amps. They just already have backline rentals at every stop that they're making on their tour for that very reason.
I loved my backline gigs because I didn't have to worry about bringing my amp out. I didn't have to worry about it breaking. Like when I did need to bring out an amp player, I usually just bring a Hot Rod Deluxe. Again, just like the pedal board, you could go find one at any Guitar Center anywhere in the country, no matter what. So if anything happened, you could find something comparable. And it was just a nice pedal platform, like kind of Twin. It's a great I played with tons of twins. It's a great backline amp. Everybody's got one. You know how it's gonna, as a player, you know what it's gonna sound like every time.
Yeah.
And you know how your pedal board's gonna work into that thing every time. And there's definitely something to be said for that when you're out on the road. Like, it's super cool. And I'm sure everybody wishes they could be Bonamassa going around with the stack of dumbbells, old Marshall Silver Jubilees in the purse.
When I did the backline stage work for Crosby, Stills and Nash, they each one had their own amp tech and guitar tech with them, as well as their entire collection of instruments and amps. The worst load out, load in that we ever did, because for 3 guys, playing on a stage with not much else, they had like 4 or 5 trailers just full of gear. Just full of it. Yeah.
Super cool. But
and they played, they actually, to their credit, they used 90% of it.
Really?
During their show, they were like constantly trading out guitars. Now, Stills, he only played through his Tweed. He had a 58 Tweed that was his only amp. But like everybody else, they were like, trading out guitars and trading out, different things. So
imagine touring with that.
I know it was, and I mean, these luthiers, they like set up an entire workbench. I mean, they had more tools than I had, in my building shop, much less, what I would take on tour.
Oh, guys, a friend of mine here who's a amp tech. He works for a bunch of different bands, and he literally brings his entire, like, he got a travel workshop that he brings with him just to upkeep these bands' amps. They're pretty big touring bands, and they bring vintage stuff on the road. So they have to employ.
They have to have a tech, yeah.
A tech that's literally, he's like, dude, after every show, I have to go through, test all the tubes, change any caps that need change. Like, it's a full-on job for one, guitar player or a couple of players, because these amps are just so notoriously. It's tough to travel with old stuff like that.
Part of me thinks that must be the best job in the world. Traveling with a band and messing with their gear all day and getting paid for it. He's living a dream, right?
It depends on the band too. You could work for some real wankers if you're not careful.
Yeah.
Then you can work for some of the greatest guys ever. And the guys that I met, they'd been with the same people for 25 years. So when they find somebody good and they treat them right, they're going to stay, forever.
They stay. Yeah, you can always tell. You can always tell if a band, how cool they are to their staff when every tour they're looking for a whole new. Like, we get those calls in LA a lot. You always hear about, oh, these guys are going on the town. They need a guitar tech. They need an amp tech.
Yeah.
Usually because their guys either quit or fired after every tour. So the bands that are never looking, it's usually the guys that are the coolest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got Alan Rogan's Showman in front of me, 64. He's the Who's tech for like 20 years or whatever. That's mad. Imagine that, the Who. I wouldn't want to be putting their gear back together after the.
You're not a jigsaw puzzle master. I mean, like, now, which guitar did this neck belong to? And
oh my God, I can't even imagine that crap going.
Hey Keith, you lost a drumstick. It was in the amp.
I'd love to go through the gear drawings then.
Oh yeah, they just fired their drummer, and then like that same week rehired him back, and they had fired him because he overplayed. Apparently he'd been overplaying too much, and now they've hired him back. So that's, I mean, your drummer was Keith Moon, and you're firing a dude for overplaying. Are you kidding?
I don't think I could deal with band politics. Seems like a whole. No. In the Navy, there's just a hierarchy, and that's it. There's no messing about. You have your rank on your shoulder, and that's it. But trying to figure out in a band when everyone's the same level, but not.
Oh no, they are not. Yeah. The singer will always tell you that they are more important than everybody.
It's the joke. It's like how many lead singers does it take to change a light bulb? One. He just holds the light bulb up, and the whole world revolves around him.
Yeah. What's the guitar? How many guitar players does it take to change a light bulb?
Screw the changes, man. We'll fake it.
The other one I heard was 20. One to do the job, and 19 to tell him how he could have done it better.
Exactly. that was the other one.
Do you get a lot of comments like that on your builds and stuff, or Like people saying, "Oh, well, you shouldn't do this. You should do it this way," and well, don't use that.
Not so much anymore. I did for a little while. You know, people would suggest different things. At this point, I don't get it so much anymore. I did actually get a message from at THD Amps.
Oh yeah,
years ago when I was first starting out, and I never got back to him. I still bad today, but he had some suggestions for me, and they were probably fantastic. I should have gotten back to him, but I just I mean, you guys know it's a lot of work, you know, running a small business, trying to figure. And I was just trying to figure this stuff all out for the first time. Like I got really lucky with how quickly everything took off, but I did not know what I was doing. I'm not an electronics expert. I have no background in it. So as I'm going, I'm like literally figuring this stuff out. And so in the beginning, back when I got the message from them, it was just, if I didn't respond right then, it was out of sight, out of mind. But for whatever reason, it always stuck that like I should have got back to those guys because I'm sure they had some great ideas for me. But what are you gonna do?
It amazes me how many people on the internet want to tell you how to do stuff, especially vintage components. Yeah, mad.
Well, see, he's not on.
Definitely know like. Sorry, go ahead.
You're not on YouTube as much as Joe is, so you don't get as many trolls. You've got just a very short YouTube section on your page, and that's it.
Yeah, so, and it's not my pedals that are on there either.
Yeah, these are vintage pedals,
so I get a pass.
and you get the total pass on that.
If I mean, you use a lot of the old Sprite caps. If I even so much as hold one of them up, I get they descend on me like a swarm of locusts.
I know it. I've definitely heard from a lot of electronics guys. I shouldn't air quote. They are electronics guys. That old caps don't even touch them. You can't use them for anything. Yeah. If I didn't use old caps, I wouldn't have a business.
Exactly.
So I kind of have to do it, number one. And number two, yeah, it makes sense. It creates so much more work for me. But I'm okay with that. That's my whole thing is I'm fine with getting a box full of apps and spending an entire day measuring every single one and finding the ones that'll work for me, testing them for audio, testing them for their capacitance, and using them. Like, I know I could just buy a box of brand new caps and just grab them, put them in, and grab them, put them in. But that's everybody else already does that.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody needs me to make pedals the way that everybody else makes them. They need me to make pedals the way they make them. And it's a really time-consuming and, probably not correct process. But that was my ignorance of electronics when I got started was really a benefit to me, because if I hadn't done it that way, I'd be one of the million, companies out there that is struggling to find customers, because it's tough to stand out in this industry. You can have great stuff and people have a really tough time finding a lot of great pedal companies. But there's nothing that really makes them stand out against all the other stuff. So that's, it really worked to my advantage. But yes, I heard from a lot of electronics people that cap is a cap is a cap. And I have to disagree.
100%.
Even though, yes, 10NF is 10NF, but what it's made out of does have an impact.
It makes a huge difference. It's voltage rating too. Like, how big is your dielectric?
There's a lot that goes into it. And while I don't know why it happens, I know what I'm looking for tonally. And when you deal in such minutia as the stuff that I do, like, I can build a treble booster out of all brand new parts and stick it up against, mine made out of all old parts. Most people won't hear the difference whatsoever. You can A/B them back and forth and they won't hear anything, but it's just sometimes it's more in the feel than anything else. The way that the guitar and the tone and the amp all react dynamically
Yes,
with each
exactly. That's what I keep trying to like communicate to people, is that whole part of the chain, that feeling from the moment the pick hits the string to how it goes through and what you hear, as your, feedback from the amp. There's minutia in there that gets lost in some of the stuff that gets, like you said, over designed and just homogenized.
Totally.
I also think a lot of people play a volume where you can't tell. If you're not turning the amp up a little bit, you don't get that feedback loop that helps you. I mean, I certainly do that now because
or at least working with an amp that is capable of being turned up to a level that's not ear splitting, but still gives you enough of what it does. I mean, that's the thing about some of the low power amps, is you can crank them up to where you get that same kind of feel, but you're not having to kill your neighbors with the tone.
Right. I mean, amplifiers aren't meant to be played at a low volume. That's not what they're designed to do. The way you get all the tone that everybody's searching for is by cranking amp up. Usually you want your power tubes working just as your preamp tubes to give you that really pleasing overdriven sound, and you lose a lot of that when the amps turn down. Like, yes, it's a lot more manageable to your ear, but that's not where the amp works properly. It's like having a Ferrari and driving it to get groceries. It's it does the job, but it's not doing what it was meant to do. And I think a lot of people don't live that area because it is impractical to have a cranked up amp, practicing in your bedroom, which is, where a lot of people, most non-professional players, that's where you're playing. Maybe you'll get together with your friends every once in a while, but for the most part, you got your pedal board in your living room or your bedroom, and you're playing your amp on 2. And so, you probably won't hear a lot of the differences between these things because it's really subtle. Like, the analogy I always use is it's different shades of the same color. Like, they're all basically the same thing, but a navy blue versus like a cobalt versus a light blue. Like, there's so many different shades of the same thing, and you get that from audio too, and different pedals and amplifiers and different rigs and combinations, and you need them working properly for that difference to be even audible. So there's a lot behind the setup itself and how you apply that, because treble boosters, old fuzz pedals, basically anything that was made before like 1970, they didn't design that to be used on a pedal board with a bunch of different pedals. Like, they were supposed to be as equal weight in your rig as your guitar or your amplifier. Like, your pedals should matter as much as your amp choice and your guitar choice. Like, those 3 things together are going to make a humongous difference. So being able to use those as they were intended, as opposed to nowadays, you've got a bunch of pedals with thousands of parts in each one of them, all running into an amp that's being played very underpowered. You're not hear the subtle shades and differences that you would running just a treble booster with a Les Paul into a Vox, and then the Vox is up to 10. There's a huge difference between that and then a treble booster into a drive pedal into a crystal amplifier at volume 2. The parts used in that treble booster aren't going to matter as much.
Yeah, that's what I always say, and it's people criticize it without actually trying them as well. That's what I don't like. They're like, "Oh, you could have used these for half the price," and I've tried it. I've analyzed it. I've put it on a scope. That's what I get a lot. I've watched it on a scope. I too have a scope. It doesn't make sound. It just makes a drawing. What are you talking about?
I have never put anything through a scope. I don't own one. Don't care. Really? That's not how I base anything. It has no bearing on what it's doing. It's all done by my ear, which is, again, probably the wrong way to do it.
That's actually
I disagree. I think it's the right way.
I think it's the right way to do it. Yeah, because instruments can lie. Your ear, if you got your ear attenuated to certain things, you're gonna hear it every time.
People are buying your ears, basically, the way that you tune it. So I think that is right. I've got a scope because my mother-in-law bought me one for my 40th birthday. Thanks, Ange, if you're watching. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
I've got two. I've got two because I inherited them.
Have you got the big old ones? Mine's a game, but mine's probably the size of this pedal, bit smaller.
Oh yeah, I used to have one of those. It got snatched. It was too portable. Somebody decided that I'll take that tricorder.
Scousers everywhere, mate. Anyone from Liverpool, you got to watch them. I don't class myself as being from Liverpool anymore. I've been down south.
You've gone posh on us, Joe.
I've been trying to change my accent, bad.
You have a tree. You have a tree in your yard.
Yeah. I mean, well, if you had a tree in your street when I was growing up, that made you posh. Or if your mum and dad had a car, there's you, rich.
That's huge, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was the measurement.
I've got 36 acres. What are you talking about?
I've never even seen 36
I'm a
acres,
landed gentry.
Yeah, you are.
I'm your lad.
I remember being 15 and I met this girl. When I went round to her house, her mum and dad had a car. They had a tree in their garden. And that was the point where I realized, oh shit, I'm poor. Before that, I just didn't, it never occurred to me. Like, yeah, of course we've got 3 of us sleeping in the same bedroom. That's normal, isn't it? No. No, it's not. You have no money, mate. Like, oh shit.
Trace Fandango says you still sound like Jimmy Corkle, though.
Oh, I got a lot of time for it. I tell you what, the only reason I go to guitar shows is banter with him. It's class. Yeah, brilliant. As far as parts go, when you're listening to pedals, if you were going to design a treble booster, if someone said to you, I want you to start from scratch, design your own treble booster, what would be like your top picks and choices and why? Like, for example, I noticed you put quite a bit of emphasis on the potentiometer as well. You'll just use new potentiometers. I've seen you strip down old potentiometers and swap them about and get the right values on the track. I love it. But
I spend a lot of time putting up potentiometers to work because they are not the old ones especially are, they've been sitting for a long time and they need help to get to work again. And especially in the Rangemaster circuit, because you're running voltage over the potentiometer. So any little bit of debris in there, you can hear it. And that's something I get a lot of comments on when people aren't familiar with it and they get their pedal for the first time. Like, it pops scratchy. I'm like, it's not scratchy. It's just you can hear it. If it bothers you, turn the pedal off and then adjust it. These were meant to, they didn't want you to be adjusting the volume while you were using it. It was just,
it was meant to be set and play.
At 10, and don't fuck with that thing. I do like using the old pots just again because nobody else was doing it. I started making these. The first bunch of these that I made was for myself because I did a Rangemaster, couldn't afford it, and so I wanted to try to get as close as I possibly could, and so I felt like I needed to do everything old just to see. And I really like the way the old pots sounded. Like, they're not audio taper most of the time. They're linear, and I kind of like that.
I like linear too. Yeah,
it works great. They're sometimes it's not ideal, but on these, especially on old boosts and stuff like that, because you're not really like it's meant to be at 10. Really at 10 or at least 85% to 100% is really where they kind of shine. So it doesn't really matter what paper is, and linear kind of works better to get there. Like it's basically off and then kind of quiet and then it's loud and it just kind of saturates, which I feel like for a boost like that, it works better. I've actually sent out one with a audio taper pot, and the guy sent it back and wanted a linear put in there because he's like, oh, just like, I don't like how it doesn't get to full boost until it's like the very end. And so I kind of learned my lesson on that. I was trying it out because I found some good audio taper pots, but and from there, I'm a big believer in old pots sound better in a guitar. I'm a really big fan of I know with like old Gibsons and things like that, it's the old Central Labs have a very specific audio taper that they used, and I really enjoyed that. But even beyond the taper, I feel like there's a difference in the sound. Like in about 1973, 74, most of the major pot manufacturers changed the way they made pots from the old way that they did in the 50s and 60s to the way that's still being used now. So the stuff like maybe 79 on, especially with CTS, is almost exactly identical to what you were buying in the 90s or even now from CTS. Like they're basically the same.
What they started then, but before that, like the process was toxic, is why. And
exactly.
we have a Superfund site in Asheville that now has a Walmart built on top of it that used to be a CTS manufacturing facility.
There you go.
They had to close it down around the time you said because of the environmental damage that had happened in the 70s. They had to completely revamp the process. So there haven't been potentiometers made the same way since that time.
Yeah, they just stopped making them that way. You know, same thing with tubes and transistors and things like that. They're just specific processes that they used to be made with that were super bad for the environment. They were toxic to the surrounding area and could contaminate the ground for years to come after. I'm sure it was a hell of a cleanup before they could even build anything.
Well, they bought the property for $1, if that tells you anything.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of spots in Florida like that as well that are environmental disasters that are just now being, deemed like safe to build again. And yeah, you can buy the property for really cheap.
But yeah, the caveat was they had to pay for the cleanup. So
anyway, that change, for whatever reason, I just feel like made a difference. It's probably all in my head. 99% of the time we hear, see with our eyes first. And just knowing that the old pots are in there probably has a huge impact on what I'm hearing. But I feel like there's a difference in the high-end response that you get out of old potentiometers than new. And honestly, reliability. I have old pots that have been in my Les Paul since 1954 and put together a wiring harness with brand new CTS pots like 6 months ago, and 2 of them have already failed.
Wow.
And I've had to replace them. So there's a reliability issue too. As long as you keep old pots clean, those things will work forever. Eventually, if they're not stored properly.
As long as you haven't like overheated it with a soldering iron and like damaged the interior of it or anything. And even then, I've taken an old pot apart and rebuilt it, like taking another pot that was damaged but still had good stuff inside of it, and you can like take 2 and make 1.
I do that all the time.
That's what those little tabs are for. You bend those up and you
pull them up.
Have you ever
a man after my own heart?
Have you ever tried the VIP pots, vintage inspired pickup?
I have, yeah. I've got a set of those. And the taper is the closest thing that I have found to the old CTS. Like it does have that taper.
They're in all my guitars. Well,
they're absolutely great. They work really, really well, and they do the thing. I had them in. I put them in an old, or not an old guild, a newer guild that I put old pickups in, and no complaints. They worked really great. I just ended up finding some old, Stackpole pots from 61 or something like that, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna put these in there. So now
I've got boxes and boxes of pots that I'm looking at now, and I really don't want to sort through them.
It's
like
so
I'll
much
get to
work.
them when I've run out of things that have been sorted. I'll deal with them later, type thing.
I'll never run out of things to sort because as soon as I get things sorted, I just go right back into making a mess of it again. It's like, all right, I can work. What happened? Where did everything go?
Well, I bought boxes and boxes of these things. These old Colvin, I think the brand is. Used to do like military spec ones, like sealed pots. I bought like hundreds of the things.
Got a bunch of those too.
Yeah, there's like an old guy who was just selling everything that he had. I was like, I'll buy the lot, mate. What you want for everything.
I'm looking forward. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the ham radio festival season that's coming up that they do.
We don't have that over here.
Yeah, we do. We do here in the American, like southeast still, and I'm sure it's probably still popular in the Midwest and up north. But I'm not sure, like how is California with the ham radio scene and stuff like that?
There's a few, not as many as you think. There's a couple really cool shops. Well, one shop in particular that used to be really great. That they unfortunately took over the pandemic. The ownership changed, and all of the cool stuff went to recyclers. But
man,
they still have some stuff from time to time. But when I first started going there, their main business is renting electronics to TV and film sets. So like every Star Wars, Trek, anything you saw with knobs on it that looked techie back in the day, it came.
They had it.
Guys.
Cool.
And they have it's a warehouse full of shelves with just every old piece of test equipment, reel to reel, like everything like that, old microphones. Really, really cool. I think they have half a helicopter in their backyard, in their like open air space. All sorts of old military stuff. Really cool. But for the longest time, they had just rows and rows of old boxes of capacitors that they bought from, I think, UCLA's old electronics department. When they shut down in the early 90s, and it's all Sprague vitamin Qs from like the early 60s and West Cap, all the old paper and oil stuff. And I came across a couple of boxes of Sprague Bumblebees, Black Beauties. Those were the good days. Then new management took over, and I showed up one day and went out back, and it had been raining, and there was crates of potentiometers, like old Central Labs and stuff, just sitting there getting rained.
Oh man!
Just taking home bags of this. I did everything I could. I still kick myself. There was a big box of old Stackpole 1K linear pots that at the time I wasn't using them because I wasn't building fuzzes yet. But I grabbed as many as I could, thinking I'll go back and get them the next time. And the next time I went, they're like, "Oh, sorry, they went to the recyclers." And I still, like, every time I build a fucking fuzz face or tune bender, I'm like, "God damn it!" I love to have everything matching. I've got a bunch of 100K, and I got a bunch of 500K, and I got a bunch of 20K that I used for a bias. No more fucking 1K. So unfortunately, they're not that great anymore. But I think there probably are a couple of ham radio festivals. There's a lot of big flea markets, like the Rose Bowl, the Pasadena Rose Bowl. They do one the first Saturday of every month, and there's a huge like ham radio guys that show up to that. So there's a lot of things like that, and I'm sure there's probably ham fests, but I haven't tried any yet. I should because
that's where I've found a lot of my really good scores on bulk components, like a whole bunch of Sprague orange drops in .022. Or like bags of 100 at a time, or lots of mystery op amps, and then ended up like there were 60 301s in it.
Nice.
So I sold a bunch of those. Just recently I sold a bunch of those for about about half of what they're current going for. I marketed them to somebody who then they're after marketing them for what the retail price is, but I made him a bulk deal, and because I knew I was not going to build that many rat pedals in the rest of my career. So
right, those are so hard to find. That's one of the reasons that I've kind of stayed away from moving into the 70s and later and overdrives and anything else. Is
the op amps.
The op amps. There's no chips. Like I'd love to do some of the early delays, but
you can't find them.
When you do, it's like $150 for a chip, and
for an analog bucket brigade chip now is just ridiculous if you can find it.
Analog Mike bought all that shit back in the 2000s, and I can't blame him. He's not going to give that stuff up. Why would you?
No, I wouldn't blame him.
I've just ordered one. I think is there two of them in a two different chips in a C1. I can't remember MN. Anyway, I've just thought I paid like 80 quid per IC because
It's the 3005 and 3007 or 4. I can't remember, something like that.
I've literally just ordered them because I found online a layout for a tag board CE1. It's like 3 rows of 18 tags. I'm building that. It's like I need to do it. Cool. So someone's got it on I think it might be on Reddit, but someone's built one with like a Perspex back. I'm like, I got to do that. That's got to be a video, hasn't it? It'd be about 4 hours long. Once. Yeah, and I am only building one, definitely.
I can't blame you for that. Well, just the cost alone is, I kind of get it with the expensive transistors and things that I do, but it's just so hard to find, and I don't know enough about them. Like I've learned a lot about old caps and old resistors, transistors, stuff like that. But once it gets into the op amps and the chips and ICs and stuff like that, I just don't know enough to not get faked out by all, because there's so many builds out there, and China's just putting out so much stuff.
Yeah.
And I built a super hard on just for the heck of it, and the JFETs that I just got them from Amazon or eBay or something like that, and could not get the circuit to work for the life of me. I don't know what was going on with it, and then I was like, try to get some new old stock or like some old, like some high quality JFETs, and as soon as I popped one in, it was just immediately came to life and started working. So I've learned that just because it says it's this model number doesn't mean it's
true. Yeah. Yes.
We spoke about this with Aaron last week from Dominion. Literally, I was saying I built like a super hard. I think it's a BS170 that takes, and the MOSFET. And if it in China they sell them 2N7000s. They sell them labeled as BS170, but you have to flip them round. So it's
a different pinout
because it's labeled as a more expensive transistor or MOSFET, whatever. So if you flip it around, it works. I've got drawers of them like labeled wrong way round and stuff like that. It's ridiculous. But they never sound as good as the old ones.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a big thing. I mean, even with the old germaniums and stuff like that, there's a lot of stuff on eBay is not real. I've fell prey to that quite a few times back, in the early days. I've since learned a lot about them, but I always, whenever I find out that I'm using something that's not legit, I immediately take it back and contact the person and be like, I bought a bunch of OC44s and I was using them, and I went through to go test a bunch of them, and a couple of them, it said OC44 on one side and the other side said like ASY19. It was like way more legit looking font. Like, somebody forgot to erase off of there the original. And so since then I've learned to be a lot more careful about it. And there's very specific things you can look for and find that legitimize, there's only a few fonts that they use. There's only a few kinds of codes that they would use. And it's become very easy to tell the bad ones, but that's how you learn, is you make expensive mistakes. And I'm very scared to get into doing ICs I don't know, because those get so expensive. And it's a whole nother learning thing that I'm just prepared for at this moment in time. Like the backwards MOSFETs for the show. Like, how are you supposed to know until you do it?
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, buy a transistor tester and test the shit out of them.
That helps.
There you go.
I'm obsessed with it. There's something really relaxing about sitting there and just plugging them in one by one, labeling them up. I got a thing for it. Yeah,
I mean, that's how you have to do it. Every single one of them, because not only does it need to test in a certain place, it also with germanium, a lot of them are noisy. You got to make sure that it's not noisy too, on top of it being in the right gain range and leakage range and everything.
Yeah,
there's a lot that goes into it, that's for sure.
No, yeah, I've lost count of the amount of pedals that I've built, wrote on the back of them what it is, and then gone back to test it again and gone, no, I'm changing the transistor, and then it ends up being labeled as the wrong things. All the time. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
it's easy for me because I don't build them in batches. I just build a pedal, So it's not too bad. But for you, I bet you that's the right pain.
Yeah, it can be a big pain. Well, and especially because the easiest way I found to do is doing it by pre-order. So I'll sell like a batch in pre-order. And there's definitely been a few times where I've sold X amount of pedals and I go like a transistor set and I'm testing them and going through them, and I'm getting down to the end. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. I'm gonna have to contact somebody and tell them they might not get their pedal right transistors because I'm getting low on these things. Luckily, I haven't had to do that yet, but it's been close a few times. That's why I only do like 5 or 10 at a time of each different model, just because it terrifies me to take somebody's money and not deliver.
Yeah,
I can't. I just can't do the
can't do that
thing.
Yeah,
and my mind really, will never turn off, and it would ruin my life.
It what?
It would ruin my life. I'd be so focused on it that there'd never be a point that I could pay full attention to. Like, my wife's always like, what, why don't you listen to me? It's because 50% of my brain is thinking of the next build. If you add pre-orders on top of that, it's never going to happen. Yeah, I can't.
It is very scary. I don't know how Mike does it with the 6-year wait list on the King of Tone. Like that drive me insane. Like I do about 2 months is my limit. Like if I don't think I can deliver within 2 months, I'm not going to do it, and I'll like cut the number back because I don't want that. That's a long time. I feel like that's a long time, and my aren't. So it's, that's a long time to ask for a lot of money up front, because like the way I do it, you have to pay in full. So it's paid in full. You'll get your pedal, but I don't want it to take any longer than like a month or two, just because it would drive me absolutely nuts to know about everybody's money and they're just waiting for these things. Because I'd be, I get excited when I buy a new pedal, and if I have to wait for it, that sucks. I always try to get them out as fast as possible, and it does take up a large portion of my brain. My poor wife will attest to that for sure, that I have a tough time paying attention to much else, especially once, I'm at the very beginning stages. Like I just had a batch drop on Saturday and I had everybody's money, and I've only sent 2 pedals out so far. So I have to get the shit done.
I tell you what, Marcus Reeves does the best job ever of hitting deadlines, and he's a machine. Like if I could have his organization skills, I'd be twice the size I am now. He's just unbelievable.
It's incredible. I think we're pretty equal on the amount that we do, but I feel like, he's definitely got the processes down way better than I do. I'm just kind of flailing around at things, trying to get it done in time.
I remember I remember seeing him at a guitar show and saying, why don't you ever have a stand or anything like that? I said, mate, I can't have the business. If I had extra business, I wouldn't be able to do it. Like, what a position to be in.
It's a really nice position to be in, but it's also fine because it's so much work. I'm out here in the shop 7 days a week. I rarely will take vacation. I've been doing this for 5 years. This is my 5th year as a business. I did it for about a year before. And I'm very much like Marcus in that I can't afford to bring on more business. I don't advertise. I don't do anything like that. I did my first guitar show last September, and it was just a little one at Benson Best. The Benson Amp guys put on like a little pedal show. And then I did Woodwire Volts, which was like a not NAMM thing, but over NAMM weekend. And it was really fun, but even just those 2 things brought in a lot more people than I'm used to. And the other problem with new customers for me is that these old circuits are real finicky, and they're not as plug and play as a lot of modern pedals are. And people think that they act like a modern pedal and not have these little quirks and things like that. And so there's a learning curve to it, and new customers can be tough in that way. I end up spending a lot of time having to, explain how old circuits work, and why you can't have a buffer bit, and why you want a direct signal from your pickups, or why you can't daisy chain this in your or I'm sorry, that power supply you bought isn't technically isolated. It's a daisy chain just inside a box. I hate
That's
to tell
my
you,
favorite.
a lot of
That's my
stuff like
favorite.
that.
I get pictures of them. This is my power supply. It says isolated. It's an isolated power supply. Like, put your meter from the negative lead of your thing to the negative lead of another. Is the continuity? Yes. That's not isolated.
Not isolated.
All the time.
Because everything I do is PNP. Every single pedal I put out is like that, and I do like the vintage style ones, but I'll also do what I call the professional or the pro series, which is in a 125B with DC jack and LED and all that kind of stuff, and because it's just people want to put them on their boards, which is great. I'm super stoked about that, but there comes with so many caveats that uninformed buyers can struggle with them, and it's and I get it. You just spent a bunch of money on a brand new pedal, and it's not working the way you thought that it was going to work. So I get the frustration that people can have with that, and so I don't want to say I go out of my way to not bring in a lot of new business, but I try to keep it manageable. Because we'll always need new business, but the few times where I've had a Marcus like thing where like that pedal show will do feature something I built, or Mark Agnesi at one point posted about what I was doing, and I just got this huge
I saw that. That's mad.
New people, and it's like, holy shit, it's really it's a lot to handle, because not only are you getting these orders, you bombarded with questions, and it's just a lot for a single just a one person operation to take on. So
so do you like allocate your time to like answering questions, building and stuff like that? Do you have certain time periods, or do you freehand it?
I should.
I knew that was coming. I get more of like a skateboard surfer vibe from you than I would somebody that's like, everything I'm in the same way. It's like I should do a lot.
Definitely do that.
Yeah,
but I don't. It's kind of I just kind of freewheel it. I have a schedule in how I spend my days, for sure. Like I get up, get ready, start work at pretty much the same time every day, and I'll stay out till about the same time every day. But how I spend my time while I'm in here can vary drastically depending on what's going on. But the phone is a humongous distraction, because there's
massive.
Getting emails, DMs through social media, and it can be anything from customer questions, repair requests, guys that just want to talk about gear, people who want who have technical, like people who are trying to learn and want to know how you did this or how you did this, and it's really difficult to, when I see a notification, as we all are trained to do, we grab the phone and I have this added layer of guilt. Like if I know if I don't answer right now, I probably won't answer it. And to anybody who's watching and I have left you hanging, I'm very sorry. It's not you. It's really difficult to keep all these things, that are all spinning around. And unfortunately, sometimes, questions or DMs from people I don't know end up kind of going by the wayside. So I always try to answer as soon as I can. It's usually I'm just trying to focus on building, and then like as they come in, I try to answer. But I should probably, and my wife's also suggested that I should try to keep things a little bit more organized.
I'm trying to teach myself.
For me, it's like the fact that we can get together every other week at the same time. I mean, that's about the most steady of anything that I've had going on in a while. It's usually like daily
episode
subject.
20.
Yeah, daily schedules are subject to change daily. Otherwise,
I've started since I've read a few self-help books just because there's so much to do. Since starting YouTube, it's like having another thing that I want to, and my passion's for it. So I want to do it. It's so hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, how am I going to achieve everything? And then still, I like pick my kids up from school. All of this stuff needs to happen on time still. And the only way I can do it is flight mode the phone, or block Instagram notifications for a couple of hours a day, or because if you go on there and I find myself, because I talk to a lot of people, I love talking guitar. I can lose an hour, and it's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah. I had the good fortune to just recently partner up with a music store here locally that's brick and mortar. So I have a place I can go hang around a bunch of gear, a bunch of people that want to play gear and talk about gear. And also I get jobs from there. Like people are bringing in repair work for me now. So shout out to all the people at the Vintage Corner. You know who you are.
Oh, mate, that's epic. For me, all of my guitar friends are pretend friends online. There's no one in my ear.
Until this, like, I was an Instagram guitar, player, more or less. This is the only time you'd see me play guitar is on Instagram.
Annoyingly, I don't play guitar, and in my videos, people always comment and say, "Oh, it's good that you're playing guitar on the video." Like, for fuck's sake! So I've started trying to play again now, but it really doesn't do the demo justice to have me strumming 3 chords and then strangling 3 notes or whatever.
But it's your pedal, and it should be played by you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, normally I've got this TC Electronic wiretap, and I've got a few friends that really play guitar, so I use that for like testing pedals and whatever. And the amount of people that say you're not getting the guitars pick up impedance and all that, like, come on. I've thought of that. I know that. So I've got a transformer. I've got it wired up so it's getting a guitar's pickup impedance. It's not my first rodeo, cowboy. Come on. But still, people need to tell me.
Of course they do. I mean, YouTube is terrible for that. I don't know what is wrong with the people that are on YouTube versus anywhere else, but
I love it. I absolutely love the trolls.
Yep.
It's so funny.
Yeah, definitely.
I built a Gary Clark Jr. I built a Gary Clark Jr. pedal, and one guy wrote on there, "I hate Gary Clark Jr." That was his comment. Like, brilliant. I think you're watching the wrong video, mate.
Great, you ended up selling him a different. You ended up selling him. You ended up selling him a different pedal. You said, "Well, what do you like?" And he said, "Oh, weird. Buy this." And so you sold him one of your pedals anyway.
Mate, I did. My whole adult life has been in the military, and I'm an aggressive, abrasive person that is hard to live with. My wife can probably attest to that. I live in a metal can, probably the size of my workshop, with 40 lads. You're never going to out-troll me. You're just not going to do it. If anyone wants to go on every one of my YouTube channel, and try and beat me, I dare you. I've spent my whole life doing this shit.
It's fun.
No one is as brutal as 40 sailors in a fucking tin can the size of a.
I can't even imagine.
So, but I love the show. What I like most of all is how offended they get when I say thank you for all the comments. It's boosting the views on my videos, and they're like really offended by it. Like,
they just want you to be mad. That's the whole thing. Like,
that's it.
I've just taken a 0 tolerance. I just respond. If you have anything that's less than neutral to say, then fuck you. I don't care. I'm never going to respond to you, because that's the only thing that gives you power. Like, no matter what it is, if you respond to that person, they got what they wanted out of that side of the conversation, was to piss off to the point to where you acknowledge their existence. So I just don't. And
that's a good.
Luckily, I don't have to deal with it often. Like, don't YouTube very often. There was somebody on, and it was YouTube, of course. I built a pedal for Tom Bukovac. I made him a treble booster, and he posted about it in one of his, layer YouTube posts. And somewhere in the comments, some guy had a bunch of opinions about of course, the parts I use, and you just using old parts, and that's stupid, and blah blah blah. It's like, nobody fucking asked. All he did was say, "This guy built me a treble booster out of old parts. That's so cool," and moved on. That was all it was in there. It's like, fuck you. But
I get it all, mate. I love it.
Yeah.
I got my favorite. Well, you're using the wrong tool. Like, okay.
Sure. Okay. Fine. don't you build me a pedal that sounds as good as mine? We'll fucking talk.
It's getting better now because I think with YouTube, when I had like 100 subscribers and like 12 people watching a video, I think people were more inclined to comment and tell me I'm wrong. And it's getting less and less now, I must admit. I do miss it.
Yeah, I mean, it's also kind of nice that they're respecting that. You know, it sucks that it takes followers to gain the respect instead of skill or like knowledge, which is really where it should come from. But unfortunately, in this day and age, that's kind of people. It's become this mutually exclusive thing where you're not taken serious unless you have followers and subscribers, which is
that's the opposite of what it should be in some cases. Like it's not a popularity contest necessarily.
Can you create content, which is a completely different job than being an expert in your chosen field. But nowadays people are expected to be both, if not multiple things. Like not only do you build pedals, not only are you in the Navy, you also have to run a YouTube channel, and you have to know how to run a small business and all these other things. It's so many hats to wear.
And now I've got to learn to play guitar.
And now you got
got to. It's job's on. Yeah, and it's fun, mate. I love it all. I just feel like guitar's this massive hobby that anyone can take part in. There's no level entry or barrier to entry. Anyone can pick up a soldering iron and start soldering the pedal. Do it. I love it when people say you could make this for $30. They're usually American, no offense, guys, but they usually are. And like, I could build this pedal for $30. Like, I'm like, great, build it and send me a picture. I'd love to see it. I'll help you if you're struggling with bias or I don't know. I'm more than happy to help. I think me and John.
The whole you can just go build it for go build it for however much parts cost. Well, yeah, of course you could go build one, but I have to build a bunch for a bunch of people, and I have to find all these parts and do all this work. And usually, a lot of the questions I get is like, "Oh, hey, where do you get all your parts?"
So that they can go buy them.
Like, go find them yourself. That's what I spend all of my goddamn time doing. Like, I'm fucking phone trying to hunt down parts from any obscure corner of the internet that I possibly can. That's a huge part of the job.
I still get messages from customers that think I have some sort of ridiculous line on vintage 1950s, original P90s that I can just pull out of thin air and say, I need a set of I need a 1957 P90. Putting this is like, good luck. I don't have one.
I can help you out. I can help you out. Don't buy that. Get hold of Stuart Sunday and just get one made for you.
Dude, tell me about it.
Oh no, it's got to be an
he
original.
Measures the carbon content in his slugs and stuff. He's like uber geeky. So you've got to sound.
So some of the gas sufferers that I know, it has to be the original, or it won't be right.
I pots all the time. They'll contact me and like, do you have any Stackpole 250K from 1953? Like, no, if I did,
it'd go in my stuff. They would go in my stuff.
You think you're getting one over on me? I'm like, yeah, of course I got that. Here's one for $5.
Yeah,
they just exist, and
if
you can find them, they're fucking expensive.
Anybody got a vintage tuner for like one tuner? Like some guys like looking for one replacement tuner. It's like I'm going to break up a set of 6. No, thank you.
So you can have the one.
So you can have the one. You can buy all 6 of them and take one out of that. If you want to. But I'm not going to sell you just one tuner.
Yeah. It is very funny how far people will take their requests to try to like. I don't know if it's get one over on you or as they're just not thinking of. I think is really
it could be both.
I think part of me thinks that we build that many of these that they think that we have them in abundance and it's just hard to find for normal people. Maybe they think they're not as rare as we know they are. They're thinking, if I just knew where to look, I'd be able to get one too. Like,
or they just think it's like something that there's an Amazon site for it they just haven't found yet, and that the Amazon site to direct them to is what they're thinking, but. They don't realize that you've tracked this stuff down through people, with shady connections in different Eastern European countries. And,
But there used to be a site called Mark Hines Easy Web Store in the UK, and he had everything. I mean, every transistor, everything. At one point back in like 2012, you could get NKT 275s for like a tenner from his website. It was just everything.
Yeah.
And
I got some stuff from him.
Yeah, brilliant store. It's gone now though.
Buzz, just how much for just one rib? I remember that from the movie. We're just one rib.
Oh yeah.
Dan Mincher just mentioned that he watched my Timmy video and it was a clusterfuck. Yes, it was. I can't find a comment that has escaped me. That was rather hilarious. Yeah, some videos or some pedals just don't want to be built. Like, I will never build another one of them now because they're that. But the other pedals you come to and they just go together like it's almost like angels are singing when you're making it. It's so easy. But yeah, that was not that.
I've got a few like that in the box. Never.
Yeah. Oh, I've got a box of never to be built pedals. I can't. So apart from the potentiometer and the transistor, what do you look for in, like, for example, I know we said Sprague Black Beauty caps and the West caps and stuff. What is it about them that you're looking for over, for example, something like the old Dubeliers or something like that?
I don't know, honestly. Like, it's just through experience and trying. Because if you look at a bunch of my old pedals, did use all that stuff. I used anything I could get my hands on because when I first started, everything was recycled. I hadn't started buying like old parts for the most part. I was buying old PAs, old reel-to-reel recorders, anything that made audio from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and I would just pull every part out and I would try it. And it's just over a process of elimination, really, is just trying all these different parts and finding what I thought sounded best. And also the availability. Like, there's some things that I wish I could get more of, and I just can't find them in the right value. So I make, like, I would love to be using the old Hunt's mold seal for all my treble boosters on the 6-way switch with the output cap, all that, because that's what the original used. But they're just really brittle and they fall apart like nobody, like in shipping they'll just come crumbled apart. And on top of that, they are just the worst capacitors that were ever created. I've never seen capacitors drift so much.
Oh wow.
Is that the brown ones?
They're either black, brown, and it's just a metal foil capacitor on the inside, but they have this like it's not Bakelite, but some kind of really brittle like plastic material.
I've got a bunch of them
to keep moisture out, I'm sure.
Sometimes you'll find them in like a dark blue or
exactly. They say Hunts, and some of them will say mold seal, or some of them will have a date code like E16 or
there were a few different companies that used that same kind of packaging that I've seen, and it was a real trendy thing. It was a real trendy thing for a real short time, and then you don't see
like
it because it probably
64,
because probably for the same reason you said, is like, oh, they figured out that this plastic doesn't hold up.
It really does not keep the moisture out, because those things, besides Sprague bumblebees, which it's
bumblebees explode, man. Bumblebees will explode just sitting. You don't even have to wire them up.
I've never seen anything that drifts so much besides bumblebees and those old Hunts. Like, you'll get point, like I was buying all these 0.005s because that's the input cap for a Rangemaster. I was so stoked, and I'd get them, they'd be like 20 NF. Beyond triple or quadruple their original intended value. Like, they were just so far gone. And a lot of bumblebees that were those were the cheapest caps you could get from Sprague. Like, that was the commercial grade.
That was
that's why they used them.
That's why Gibson used them. They were the cheap shit. Same thing with Dallas and the Rangemaster. The Hunts, that was just cheap. It was in old radios, and they used them in the Rangemaster and nowhere else because they sucked so bad. And they were just meant to be mass produced and probably replaced, But that also is why as Rangemasters get older, as those values drift, you get more frequency through, and they actually start to sound like they have a little bit more gain, and they start letting more low end through, and they age in a really pleasing way, which is great. So the bigger thing is I have to measure everything because they're all so out of spec. But I've just found specific that, like, I really like the way that the military spec, like West Cap, Sprague, all those like mil spec Pranoia caps that you find in like the Vitamin Q, basically. Like they're all kind of versions of the Vitamin Q. Great for input caps on Rangemasters, and they work okay in Fuzz Face as the output cap. But a lot of things work for that. You know, Tropical Fish work just as well. And I found I'm not a fan of the Tropical Fish film style in the Rangemaster. I feel like they're a little bit more brittle sounding. So it's just been a kind of a trial and error trying to find what I feel is the best sound for what I'm putting out. Like I have a very specific way that I want my treble boosters to sound and my fuzzes to sound, and you know, I've just been trying shit out until you kind of land on the right one, and then hopefully you can find a bunch of them. And it's not always the case, and so you just kind of make swaps when you can. I've got a shit ton of old mustard caps, which a lot of people love using, and I just haven't found a particular use for them quite yet. I'm sure I will at some point.
They're great if you put them inside of a guitar, like for your tone cap inside of a guitar. They're great for tone caps on guitars. Mustard caps.
I was just about to say tone cap to earth on like a post gain EQ on an overdrive pedal. My Kossoff drive, perfect for them. There we go. How much of this cap type? This is what I see. I've thought about this quite a bit. How much of it is not so much the flavor of the cap and the sound of it, but what you've heard in the past? For example, Gibson guitars, Bumblebee caps, Sprague caps, they're in Gibson amps. You've heard it a million times before. You come to tune your pedal, you're attuned to hearing that sound. And that's kind of why you like what you're hearing, is because you've heard that sound.
I guarantee you that's most of it.
Yeah.
That's got most of it. I know that's why I gravitate towards these pedals, because that's the sounds on records that I have grown up listening to and love. Like Tone Benders and Rangemasters are on almost every single one of my favorite records. Like that's just, I remember the first time I heard was able to play a treble booster, a Rangemaster style treble booster. My friend made me this one right here, and plugged it in, and it was like the sound that I had been looking for my entire playing career. I had this sound in my head that I just, no matter what combination of anything I had, I couldn't get. And I plugged this thing into some weird guitar, into a weird old Guild amp, and it was just like, boom, that's the fucking sound I've been looking for my entire life. Because it was called a treble booster, I always thought, well, fuck that thing. I don't want more treble. I've got plenty. And on hearing that, I was like, oh my God, that is the sound, like immediately, like just the first chord I hit. And ever since then, it's been this kind of like downward spiral into on these old records. And when it comes to playing in gear, I fall in rabbit holes pretty far. And so I've really been trying to recreate those sounds. And of course, at this point now, I'm going to get reference material. So when I can, I'll buy the original so that I can then compare and build off of that. But my whole thing has always been trying to recreate, you know, these sounds that I've, you know, always had, is like, that's one of my favorite guitar sounds. My version of that. And it wasn't until I discovered old Tone Benders and Rangemasters that I actually started getting close. I was always happy with my guitar tone, but it never got all the way there until I heard a treble booster.
Yeah, for me, I went down the fuzz quest with the fuzz right and the fuzz face looking for it, and I finally found the right fuzz right circuit. Like, it took me forever to get a fuzz right that sounded like what I heard in my head from the 60s, and growing up in the 70s, listening to it through an AM radio in a 67 Buick, and now I can plug in this thing and it's like, I'm back.
And the thing that we always forget too, and I'm very guilty of this too, we think of only the rig and not the other things that we're hearing in between the rig and our ears. The microphone, the outboard gear, what we're listening to it on, like all those things also have a huge impact. And so that's what kind of shapes each one of us as a builder. Like, you're listening to the AM radio in your 67 gives you this very specific fuzz right sound that you've been searching for, and your fuzz rights that you made on the sound in your head.
Well, that was the first, the first time I ever became aware of it as a sound was In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida and Blues Theme,
That's literally the second riff I ever learned how to play on a guitar.
Was In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida?
Number one, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida was the second time I ever learned how to play on guitar. That's awesome.
And so, and I've been chasing that tone forever, and now I found it. And I can't get it with any of the silicon circuits that I've tried. You got to use PNP, germanium, and the values, they're really picky. I mean, I went through so many sets of transistors and different configurations until I finally found this right set. And one is, I think it's been a rebranded GE. It's one of the ones that you would get from the guys that would brand everything with like a K4 500 or they were buying up old. Let's see who they are. They were buying up old stock. You would see them in these kind of packages. This is what they came in.
And so local electronic shop.
Yeah, and at a pack of 3, you might get one that was good, for your purposes. But anyway, I went through a bunch of those, and one was just the right leakage, and then the other one that I used was a really tight Soviet PNP, one of the UFOs. And that's the thing. You got to have one really squirrely transistor on one side, one really tight focus transistor on the other. Because you're basically just blending 2 different single transistor fuzzes in the fuzz right circuit.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't spent a lot of time with that circuit.
Yeah, that was why it was like such a weird one for me, because it was counterintuitive to what you would do with a fuzz face. You're both transistors are coming through, and it's just you're basically your fuzz control is just like how much of which one is going to be dominant in the blend. It was
a new circuit to me. I still haven't built one. I've been saying since episode 2 I'm going to build one.
But that was that's why when you crank it all the way to the right, you can only play single note. Like, you cannot strike a chord with a fuzz right. If you try and play more than one note, even a power chord, it's over. It's just it's horrible. Turn it all the way to the left, and you can play. It's almost like an overdrive. It sounds like a really cool overdrive. And you put it somewhere in the middle, it's like that blend and balance between the two. But if you really want to go full biker mode with the fuzz face, crank it all the way to the right, and pretend you're Peter Fonda with ape hangers, and you're going down the LA River.
That's right.
I just think it's wild that you started from that circuit, because it's completely different to where I come at it from. It's just a different world, because I went straight into treble boost. I just built Rangemasters for such a long time, and the Kossoff drive. So it was like not many circuits. That's what I think most people make a mistake on. They start a pedal company, build 20 different types of circuits, and never really just focus on one until you know what's happening in that circuit.
Like what I commented about Aaron, is like, I don't fear the man who's built 1,000 circuits, one time. The man who's been building one circuit 1,000 times over 10,000 hours. That's the one, that's the guy that knows something.
It becomes a feel thing, even like biasing them in, especially on a fuzz face, because the bias affects the other transistor. It's just it's an art to it, definitely.
There really is. I learned that a lot. Like, I was like you, it was all treble boosters for the first probably 2 years. that's all that's why there's many more treble boosters that I built than anything else. Is I didn't even try to build something else for the longest time because I didn't know what I was doing. I only knew how to build the one thing. But learning from that circuit and how it worked, after doing it so many times, I was able to kind of go to the next thing that was a little more complicated, like a fuzz face, and then what else did I build? Oh, I built an old wah circuit. But yeah, you're doing the one thing. Like I'm getting pretty good at the fuzzes. Like there's a few fuzzes that I'm happy that I'm pretty good at, but the treble booster I still know like the back of my hand. I've done, like we said, I've 1,300 of those, and I think the next highest scale number I have is 250 on one of my fuzzes, like 255 or something like that. So it's exponentially more treble boosters than anything else.
Yeah.
And
you're the 10th degree black belt grandmaster of treble booster, and Aaron's the 10th degree grandmaster black belt in fuzz face. Definitely,
exactly.
Like
that's what we picked, and really went all the way down with that. Like Aaron did the same thing with
totally respect that too, man. I love that kind of dedication to it, because you really can like pick up everything. It's like if you go in that deep into something and you start seeing just like where a few picofarads here, a few picofarads there, a few ohms less here, what if I have it at this 0.4 instead of 0.5, or and you can at that point you have an encyclopedia of tones in your head that then you can say, oh, you want this.
Really helpful for that, for sure. It makes it easy with special requests when if somebody has like, oh, I'm really trying to hit this sound, I know where to go with that. With the Rangemaster.
It's amazing how much you can tell from just testing a transistor of which way to go with that transistor to make it. Like if you have something that's like, I quite like something real low gain, 40 HFE. You put something like that in a treble booster, it's going to be a little bit scoopy, really present, high end, sort of hollow sounding but pokey. And if you get a high gain one, like 200 HFE or whatever, it's going to be like thick 70s rock, probably more distorted than I would like.
Mega compressed. And
and that's sort of like what I'd imagine. I don't know, someone like Jimmy Page using. I know he's not known for that, but that sort of 70s punch in the face type thing. And you can kind of
thinking like Aerosmith arena rock type.
Yeah, but you can tell on just testing it on what I'm going to build it for. And like you said about not using tropical fish caps in the treble booster, I think it adds like a stabby sort of high end to the tone. So if you know someone who's using maybe not a valve amp or some sort of, like for example a katana or something like that, a Boss katana, putting that in there really helps with that amp. So I know, oh, you're playing with this gear, I'll use this.
100%. Yeah.
Pick all these little things up just by building them for people and then sending them back and saying it's not doing what I want it to do, and then over it again, and after years you pick that up. And that's what that's what people are paying for, though, I suppose. When
when I'm working on people's instruments, like I ask them, what style of music do you play? What thickness of pick do you use a pick? Or are you playing this type of music? Are you playing through what kind of amp? So when they say I want a low action, I know what a low action means for one player means the exact opposite of another player.
Yeah,
and that's very true. Everybody's version of phonology can be very different.
It is, and so it's just like I want information. It's like, here, just set it up. It's like, what do you play? Do you play slide? Do you play? Are you a blues player? Are you a shredder? Are you an all-around Swiss Army knife guitar player that you need to be able to do everything? So
right.
I'm laughing because I remember taking my guitar to a shop in Liverpool when I was just starting out. I've been playing for a couple of years, but really, really a novice, and saying set it up, and he was like, how? And I was like, well, I don't know, just make it right. And he was like, well, there is no right.
There is no right.
I was like, I left it with him to set up, and I left thinking, that guy's fucking nuts. What's he mean?
He left and he goes, God, not another one.
I know. And now I'm the guy that I get it set up and tell them how I want it, and they'll do it. And I'll come back, play it for a bit, and be like, no, it needs, a little bit more relief or whatever it is. And I'll do it myself. Like I could have just set it up myself. That's me. Yeah.
And either way,
Yes.
you drink.
Yeah, exactly. It's mad. Oh man. Well, I think we're on 2 hours and 14 minutes. I'm going to call the stream there because we're in the middle of the night here, and I'm first.
Yep, it's getting late across the pond. So,
oh man. Well, it's been amazing speaking to you, and I've been Hello Sailor Joe. Thanks for tuning into the Pedal Dive podcast. I've
been John Mulholland, Space Wolf. Greetings again, and everybody have a safe week until we see you next time.
Chris Vincent, R2R Electric. Thank you all for coming in and with all comments and everything. This is really fun. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, I can't wait to have you on again too, and see where things are going. Yeah,
you let me know.
Definitely need to. Oh, cool. Maybe we could add you into the super guest role list that we want to do. We want to do a big show.
Yep, we do.
I've got this dream, right? Just quickly before we go, of building a massive amp-sized pedal that I've finished in whatever nitrocellulose, all that jazz, and I'll put one circuit in and leave the rest of it blank, just with the input and output jacks wide up, and I'll send it to someone else who's been on the show. They add a circuit and another circuit, and
we'll make it like a Cox Nest monster, but different. Yeah. We'll call it the
and then
the Kraken. We'll make the Kraken. We'll have 8 pedals.
I'll make it like a tattooed sleeve, and then at the end of it, everyone who's added something to it, we'll do a big giveaway or sell it or auction it for charity or something like that.
That's anyway, great, man.
I'm waffling on. Cheers, guys.
All right.